The film starts on the planet of Yautja Prime, where every living being is a threat to one another, and they have to constantly hunt to survive. Dek reaches a beach and finds remnants of his brother. He gets inside a cave and announces that he can sense his brother. He soon figures that his brother Quay is just behind him, invisible, and attacks him. They get into a sword fight, but Quay says that Dek is still not strong enough to stand against him. But Dek is not ready to give up that easily, as he wants to be the one to hunt Kaisk, the apex predator, on planet Jenna. Even their father, Njor, is scared of it, and anyone who hunts it down will be able to win his approval as the next clan leader. Their fight intensifies, and Quay makes Dek fall off a cliff. But Dek has survived and says that he isn't ready to give up yet. Quay is happy to see his brother's resilience, and they start their fight again. After that, both brothers get back to their dorm. Quay tells him that he still remembers the day his little brother saved his life. He then asks Dek to follow him, and he does. Quay then says that it's time for Dek to take his vow and select a prey that he will hunt down and bring back to his planet. All his ancestors did it before him to be a part of the clan, and if he fails to do so, then he will never be allowed back on the planet. He picks the planet Jenna and wants to hunt down Kaisk. But Quay says that even their father fears it, and losing would mean death. Dek says that their father thinks that he is the weakest of them all, but he will prove him wrong by hunting down the strongest predator. Quay tries to stop him, but Dek says that he has already taken his vows, and Quay can't stop him. Soon, a ship lands on the planet, and the clan leader, Njor, comes out of it. Dek welcomes him with pride, but he says that Dek is the weakest of them all and must be eliminated. Quay says that Dek has taken a vow to hunt Kaisk, but Njor laughs it off and says that they should have killed him long ago. He then orders Quay to kill Dek and traps him by sucking his powers. Quay slowly approaches his brother and takes out his sword to finish Dek. But he suddenly cuts off his chains and throws him inside the ship. He then fights against his own father to keep Dek safe. But Njor is too strong and cuts off Quay's arm as Dek watches helplessly. Quay slowly crawls back, and Njor says that he has shown incredible weakness by trying to protect his brother. He can reach for his sword, but instead, he grabs his chopped arm. Njor grabs him, but just then, Quay uses his arm to depart Dek for Jenna. Dek watches in horror as Njor beheads Quay right in front of his eyes. The ship moves on. Dek is flown away and later falls unconscious as the ship has entered the orbit of Jenna and is about to crash. He wakes up, and the ship is rapidly falling. He manages to eject himself and lands with a terrible impact, but manages to survive. He is frustrated with anger and sets down his weapons to test them. After tasting all of it one by one, an alien bird sits behind him, eventually taken away by a tree tentacle. He hears it but sees no one. He steps quietly, but soon the tentacles attack him and take away his weapon. He brings his sword out, but one grabs his hand. He is then pulled away as he uses his arrow to shoot it down. He somehow grabs hold of his sword and survives. He sees all around him are the tentacles. A constant fight follows, and he somehow climbs over them to finally jump to a cliff where the tentacles can't reach. Later, he scans some leaves to use them as medicines on his wound. Then he notices a worm over a leaf, but after picking it up, it begins to swell. He throws it away, and the worm explodes. He then reaches a grassland where a bunch of cacti with spikes begins to bulge. He steps back, and it turns back to normal. He tiptoes through the land while from far away, someone calls for him. She speaks in a language he doesn't understand. Soon, she manages to tune the universal translation and asks if it's better. Just then, a bigger alien bird is seen flying as she warns him it's not good. It drops a stone on the land, and the cactuses burst. He ducks down to get saved from the spikes, but it regenerates. She says she can help him, but needs a hand. He does not care to listen, but she knows that he is here to hunt down the Kaisk. Dek begins to run, but one of the spikes eventually hits him. He is about to get unconscious while the girl says she has the antidote. If he had a weapon, she could help him. He finally gets his blade out and throws it to her. She struggles to get hold, and Dek falls senseless while the alien rushes at him. But at the last moment, the girl saves him, eventually finishing the bird. Dek wakes up, and she shows how the leaf is used as an antidote. He pulls her up and sees that half her body is gone. She says she is a synthetic named Thaya. She was deployed by a corporation from planet Earth for research. He drops her. She says that many Yautja had come for the Kaisk, but nobody survived. She has survived it, so if he takes her along with her, she will guide him to its den. He doesn't give in, and then she further says that she can be useful to him, as she has already shown. He feels she can be a good tool, and takes her away. He passes the cliff, throws her over, and continues walking as she keeps asking him his name and telling him about herself, but he doesn't care. They pass through a dangerous canyon where some eel-like creatures attack them. Thaya has got a hold of some sticky seeds. She says she can pet them and throws those behind to distract the aliens. They proceed, and Thaya continues speaking as he drops her. He uses the tree roots to tie a knot and grabs Thaya on his back. He finally tells her his name. As the night falls, they sit up by a cave, with Dek making a light off his own body. She talks about how she got here. She was sent here along with another synthetic named Tessa on a mission, but they got separated by a Kaisk's attack. There were other robots as well, but she says she and Tessa are specially equipped. Unlike other synthetics, they have higher intelligence and sensitivity. Dek says sensitivity is a weakness. Meanwhile, Tessa's half-broken body is rescued by the corporation. She is then slowly fixed. She wakes up, and the system tells her that if she fails her mission again, she will be deactivated. She asks about Thaya. The system responds that Thaya is with a Yautja who is a potential threat. The two then reach a land filled with razor grass. Over there is a bone bison that is Kayla's food. Dek decides to hunt them down himself, but gets stabbed by razor grass. Thaya sees a creature in the tree and realizes they want to hunt it as well. It soon jumps down and gets into the grass. The bisons begin to run away. Dek follows through the trees to keep tracking them. He trips, but just in the nick of time, manages to stop. A bison passes them, and he jumps over it. They get knocked over by a tree, while the small creature takes the lead. Dek attacks him, and a fight begins between them. The creature, despite its size, fights so well. However, Dek gets him in a chokehold as Thaya warns them that the bison is coming running towards them. It opens its strange mouth as Dek throws his weapon so precisely to completely tear it in half. And just then, the tree tentacles grab them and take them up. It almost takes them into its mouth while the creature comes for rescue. It uses its shield to protect itself from the bite, breaking its teeth. They fall and are saved. The tentacle monster chases them again, and they keep on running. The creature passes through the razor grasses, and the monster follows it. Dek cuts off a tree nearby and jumps over it. The monster grabs hold of the creature. With the tree falling, Dek gets the momentum to fall on the monster's back and tears him off with his sword. Meanwhile, Tessa finds the debris of Dek's ejectile along with his blood. She is with her full team, who fight the tentacles with ease and eventually torch them down. At night, the three sit together to eat the bison meat. Thaya is excited that they are now a trio, but Dek doesn't give any food to the small creature whom Thaya named Bud. Thaya asks Dek what his favorite part of the hunt was, and he responds when he killed it, and its blood came sprawling out. He then offers her some food, but she doesn't eat any. He disinterestedly hands it to Bud, who soon spits at him, making him furious. Thaya says she is marking him as her clanmate. But Dek isn't interested in that. She asks if he never had a friend, and Dek tells her about his brother. He tells her the incident, and he is here for the Kaisk. She then remembers Tessa once more, and Dek calls her sister, which impresses Thaya, hearing it for the first time. She says she needs to find her, and Dek roasts her, saying she also needs to find her legs. At night, Dek prepares his bed, and Bud copies his actions. Tessa finds the remains of Dek's ships and begins to investigate. She finds a bunch of his weapons and a handful of grenades that freeze her fingers. The next morning, they are about to leave, but Bud is not there, and Thaya is not willing to leave without her. He doesn't listen to her and grabs her to get going. They reach a fountain and find a Kaisk tooth. Thaya doesn't speak to him, and he calls her a useless tool. Thaya replies that Bud saved their lives and wanted him as part of her family. He doesn't listen until she asks why his father killed his brother. He replies that it's because his brother was protecting him, he was the weakest among them, and there can be no weakness in the clan. But now he will show them strength by hunting down the Kaisk. She then tells him the stories of wolves found on planet Earth who hunt in packs. The leader is the strongest, but it never hunts. Its job is to protect the pack. Dek says he will be the leader that kills the most, and they begin their journey again. After some time, they reach Thaya's previous corporation center, which is situated just near the Kaisk den and was destroyed by it. Soon they find her legs. They find her chamber, and he lays her over the bed along with her legs. She sets up everything by herself. Soon, she establishes a connection with the legs. Dek tells her now he is going to hunt down the Kaisk. He will return home, take revenge, and she will be the first one to see his trophy. However, Thaya has sent her team her location. She has come to know that they are going to kill Dek. She tells him that he needs to leave immediately. Apparently, their company is after the Kaisk as well, and would never let him get to that. Dek, being frustrated, gets out by himself. Thaya begins to join her body. Outside, Dek finds a line of gas and sets it on fire. An explosion occurs, and it calls in the Kaisk. Thaya realizes the incoming danger. The Kaisk comes before Dek. He roars at it, and the Kaisk roars back. Thaya's legs are being sewn as she sees Dek being thrown away. His sword is cut in half. He makes himself a shield and runs at the Kaisk. Distracting him with the guard, he cuts him down. Then he cuts off its tail, but soon enough, it regenerates and grabs him. Thaya is almost finished with her legs, but just then, Dek is thrown at her. He is taken away again, about to be gulped down, but manages to cut its tongue. Thaya, split once again, begins to crawl to her legs, but an obstacle is blocking her way. She soon finds a gun nearby. Dek is struggling with the Kaisk as Thaya begins to shoot at it. Dek gets out a chain and throws it at its mouth and pulls it in. He runs to take Thaya's gun and shoots at the creature. He traps the tail of the Kaisk and gets on it. Then he jumps at its throat and splits it from the body. However, not long before the two eventually join back. It attacks him again, but before biting him off, it smells something and stops. Just at the moment, Tessa and her team arrive and freeze the Kaisk up along with Dek. The team is on its way to the facility. Dek wakes up being tied up. Tessa is beside him, and Thaya is there unconscious. She scans him and already knows all his information from Thaya's log, but he never told her why his brother protected him. He curses at her, but she says he is now the property of their corporation. Tessa then wires Thaya, and it wakes her up. She is very happy to see her and is all excited to tell her everything she saw, but Tessa doesn't seem very curious. She then sees Dek tied up. Tessa says they have also caught the Kaisk and luckily got an additional catch. She then proceeds to inject something into Dek. Thaya says that Yautja is not an ideal specimen. Its technology is valuable, so they can just take his weapons and let him go. Tessa says they still need a sample, shuts him in, and turns on the extraction. Thaya shut down the system herself. Tessa approaches her and says that this is their job. But Thaya says that they can be more than what they are asked for. They can be sisters. Tessa asks if she knows why they are given feelings, and Thaya says it is to understand the creatures of this planet better. Tessa replies so they can exploit them. She still defends Dek, saying he saved her life, just like she had. Tessa says she hasn't come to rescue her. She is just completing their mission. Now, they must get rid of the weak to rectify previous mistakes, and she is the weak one. She asks a member to box her up. Tessa leaves, and one robot approaches Dek. Dek says he hates them, and while she talks to him, one of the robots asks why she is speaking their language. Realizing he doesn't understand it, she orders him to grab one of his weapons nearby. Dek instructs her to say it is a map. She says so, and it leads to his own destruction. Tessa hears the sound. Thaya releases him, and Tessa arrives with the robots. Thaya opens the gate, and he jumps off the vehicle. The others take Thaya away. Dek rolls off a cliff and falls into a river. The vehicles have reached the corporation. Dek has gotten himself up and reached his ship. He finds a healer with which he fixes his wound. He lashes out in anger and accidentally turns the ship's system on. He walks in and finds his brother's mask. He goes out, takes the razor grasses, the venomous leaves, a creature's teeth, the cactus spikes, and the eels. On his return, he sees Bud sitting over a footprint of the Kaisk. He realizes that Bud is a Kaisk child. He spits at him. He returns to the ship to see Thaya's legs. He releases the obstacles, and the leg begins to walk to the other half. Thaya is captured inside the box. One of the guards is attacked. It's Dek who has returned with all his weaponry. The leg walks on among the guards, who are put down by Dek and Bud. Tessa tells the system that the Yautja is dead. It responds, then the Yautja is no longer a threat, while Dek continues his killing spree. One robot goes to check Thaya while her legs are slowly approaching, but turns away before he sees it. Soon, it jumps over him and forces him for the eye print. The lid opens, she tears the head off, and seeing others come in, it falls dead again. They arrive and see Thaya unconscious. Dek finishes off the robots, eventually feeding them to the tentacles. Thaya opens her eyes and her legs attack the guard. She jumps on the other one. Together, they fight off the soldiers and eventually finish them. Tessa sees the Kaisk is being transported in its box. Dek reaches into Thias' trunk as a guard holds his gun behind him. But Thias soon finishes him off. She smiles, hearing that he came to protect her. He reminds her of wolves. He shows her his self-made mask, and then shows that Bud is actually a Kaisk child. She asks what the plan is, and he says she has to free the Kaisk, and he will get his trophy. He buzzes the alarm. Tessa orders a takeoff within 20 minutes and prepares for the battle with the guards. Thaya and Bud watch them from far, and she says she has a plan. All the guards reach Dek, sitting alone. He has set traps with the alien eels as they spit at them, and the explosions occur, ending the robots. From behind comes Tessa, operating a huge robot. She points the lasers of the Yaoja weapon stolen from their ship at his head, but just before the shot, the eel jumps and protects him from the blow. Dek roars at her as the machine proceeds and attacks him. Dek grabs a pole to attack, but doesn't work much. The tentacle samples come out, and he ducks as it grabs the machine. He jumps over it, but is soon yanked away. Thaya reaches the Kaisk to open it, but her eye prints don't work when a guard approaches her. She immediately turns one of her eyes blank and attends to him as Tessa. She tells him to go look for Dek, but he responds that she has asked them to prepare for takeoff. Soon, Bud comes there and she knocks the man down. She says they need his eyes. Dek hides behind a cart. Tessa takes them off one by one, but Dek is clinging to it, and before she sees him, he jumps on her. She shuts herself inside, but just then, the Kaisk jumps over them. A face-off between the two emerges. Tessa holds it with its huge cutter. Meanwhile, Dek cuts off the wires of the machine. She throws the freeze bomb at the Kaisk, but Dek throws his pole to direct it towards a machine's cutter, freezing it and releasing Dek along with the Kaisk. Another face-off begins as the Kaisk get the cutter out of its body. It then attacks the machine violently and breaks it. Thaya takes Dek up. The Kaisk reaches to finish Tessa, who is stuck to her seat. Her laser points at it as the Kaisk eat her up. She then slowly approaches the other three. Bud reaches her and they reunite. Dek then goes to her and touches her face, asserting his friendship. However, just then, something begins to happen inside of her. Smokes come out of her nose. Thaya realizes the weapon has ejected inside her. The Kaisk's body begins to get burned up. It soon freezes, and the whole body explodes. They are all thrown away. Thaya wakes up and sees Tessa far away. She is not in her right state anymore. She points her laser at her, but before she can shoot, Dek finishes her off. He snatches back his weapon. Bud celebrates with her head. She tells him he is a winner now, but Dek says not yet. Dek returns to his planet and reaches his clan. His father comes out and asks if he is here for revenge. Dek drops the head of Tessa and says he needs his cloak. Njor says he humiliated the clan, and a couple of Yaojas prepare to attack him. He takes them and manages to finish them off. Then he begins a battle with Njor. Njor knocks him down and uses his transparency power to battle him, but Dek somehow grabs hold of him and tears off his hand. He then ties him up and takes off his mask. Njor then says perhaps the right son did survive. He should yield now and take his place in the clan. However, Dek replies that he has his own clan now. Soon from behind, Bud, now grown a bigger Kaisk, eats his head off. From behind comes Thaya. He finally gets the cloak and wears it on himself. She congratulates him for it, and he roars in pride, when suddenly they notice a huge ship is flying towards them. He says it's his mother. You were watching the recap of the 2025 movie Predator, Badlands. Stay subscribed to the channel for more recaps like this. Until the next upload, you may enjoy this.